everybody, Priscilla here, your garden coach at Agway. And today I'm with Dragos, our resident lawn expert, to talk about our lawns this time of year in the fall. So Dragos, why is fall such a good time to take care of our lawns?
Main factor, you start getting past that summer heat.
Yep.
So even though soil temperature at a great level for seed germination, you don't really have the 80, 90 degree days that kind of impede and work against you when it comes to seed germination. Also the weed pressure from crabgrass and spurge, some of your summer annuals is starting to kind of go down. So now you have kind of a clean slate or a better medium to kind of start your seeds.
True. I've always found too, Dragos, that even in the morning in the fall, there's a little dew that kind of helps with that moisture in the seed.
And that's a great point, because the main thing that you need in order to get seed germination is moisture.
Absolutely.
So prepping the soil, doing all that stuff plays a big role, but unless you have the ability to get water on it, and sometimes like you said, getting that rain or morning dew, it plays a big factor.
It's always helped me anyway. I notice a lot of Agway customers come in and ask, why does my lawn look so dreadful at the end of the summer? And I was wondering if you had some tips on that or ideas on why.
It can be a number of factors. Watering, like we just spoke about, it's a huge piece of it. The other one is soil conditions, so it could be compaction, it could be, poor drainage, poor soil quality overall. So just being able to kind of loosen up that soil, introduce some organic matter, maybe some compost, and then obviously like the fertilizer aspect of it plays a big role.
Yeah, I noticed that in areas where we're walking all the time, that compaction is just really poor for the grass. The root structure just can't take in any nutrients. Or if I haven't fertilized my lawn or nobody's fertilized their lawn, there's no nutrients for the soil to aid in the grass growing and that kind of thing. Yeah,
my big tip for people, if it's an area that you're walking through all the time, you're trying to grow grass, I would put it in a walkway.
Yeah, make footsteps. Slate
because that's kind of works against you. Obviously, there's certain grass types that are like suited for traffic. You can park on them a little bit. You can play, run. The type of grass that they would use on a athletic field type of thing. But if it's an area that you're walking on it 4 or 5 times a day, grass might not be your best medium.
And even some slate or a path is really attractive. It looks great for landscape design.
And it really, accentuates and points out, emphasizes the grass and everything that you have going.
Absolutely. So it's fall and my grass doesn't look so red hot. And where do I begin? What do I start with? How do I begin to enhance it, make it look better and prepared for next year?
Get the soil ready. That's step one. You can loosen it up. You can use an aerator. You can use a garden weasel, which is just a tool that you use to, break up the soil, loosen up that compaction. And then the next step would be deciding what grass seed you're going to use.
Could you show me that aerator over there? I think this is such a cool tool because it's something you can do standing up. You can, loosen that soil because you got to loosen it to let the seed, move into that soil. So
just like any regular hand tool, back and forth, but it does a great job loosening up the soil, breaking up that dead grass or like weeds, whatever you have in that area. So it makes a quick work of a small area. Obviously, you have to do 5,000 square feet worth of lawn with it. It's a little bit of labor intensive, but it definitely does the job.
Does the job. And then the next step would be after the soil's loosened and sort of ready to accept maybe topsoil. You're going to put in some soil on top.
I would definitely add topsoil because a lot of times every time you redo an area, there's going to be areas that are uneven, like stepping wise, and you have to kind of plan long term when you're going to be mowing and how you're going to be using that area. So trying to level that area as much as possible plays a big role. So, with topsoil, everyone has an opinion. The higher quality topsoil you're going to go with, the better results you're going to get long term. So you kind of have to plan nutrition and quality long term.
And it's possible that the area that didn't do well just had poor soil to begin with. So by adding it is going to help the soil.
100%. Obviously on the Cape we have sandy soils, sometimes poor drainage, sometimes too much drainage. So introducing some organic matter, better quality, something that has a little bit of peat in it goes a long way.
Always a good thing, no matter what sort of thing you're planting, grass seed, shrubs, flowers. So then after we do the soil and we've prepped it and it's iron raked, I'm guessing we've raked it out and it's sort of level. What sort of grass seed? I think that's the biggest thing, the grass seed that we're going to use for the location.
And that's always a tough question to answer because every lawn has a little bit of a different need. If it's a full sun lawn, now you're going to need full sun grass seed. And what I mean by that, if you get 8 hours or more, a full sun or unfiltered sunlight in a day, then you need a full sun grass seed type.
8+.
You know, 6 to 8 hours, now you're looking at a sun and shade, and then below 6 hours, you're looking at a dense shade grass seed.
Yeah.
And these different grass varieties are suited for that particular purpose. So they're more tolerant when it comes to not getting enough sunlight. Like any plant, they're going to need sunlight in order to grow, thrive, and do well long term.
Right.
So selecting the grass seed, the proper grass seed from the get-go helps, you know, get a lawn established and get it, you know, thriving year after year.
The right seed for the right location. And coming into Agway, there's a large selection. So just by reading the labels, you'll be directed in knowing, you know, what sort of seed to use based on the title of the bag. Agway has lots to pick from. Even a high traffic. I like the high traffic seed because it's a tough seed.
Simple, sunny green. They're all going to be a mixture of perennial ryegrasses, Kentucky bluegrass, and different types of fescues. Could be like a tall fescue, which is a thicker bladed grass, but it's better suited for traffic, for, you know, more drought tolerant and stuff like that.
So they're customized, which makes our job easier to pick it out.
And the other big question that we always get is something that's specifically designed for Cape Cod. When it comes to grass types, they're not that regionalized in the sense that, you know, these 4 zip codes use this grass seed, and then you go into a different zip code, it's different. So there's some grass seeds that are designed for Cape Cod. There's the Harmony grass seed. So for the Harmony grass seed, is a low maintenance, low care grass type. But for the homeowner that wants a lush green grass as much as possible throughout the year, that's not the right selection.
Okay, good to know.
It's very hardy. It will thrive in a sandy soil. Not a lot of care and maintenance to it, but it's going to be a challenge keeping it green year-round, especially through the hot summer months.
That's good to know, because everybody has a different requirement when it comes to their lawns. Some people aren't fussy, but some people really want to make it, you know, look great all the time, like their neighbors, oftentimes. So the last thing is, once we have our seed down and we've raked it in, do you? I like to roll mine, even though I don't want to, because it's so much work. But the seed needs to make contact with the soil.
That seed to soil contact is key in order to get it to germinate.
Right.
When you think about like grass seed just being on the surface, even a diligent homeowner that's, you know, out there watering, trying to keep it wet, you're going to get, even in September and October, you're going to get a couple warm, sunny days. And the second that seed starts to dry up as it's absorbing moisture, it's not going to germinate. And once that seed dries out, there's no resetting that clock. It doesn't go back.
That's so true. I mean, it's, you know, you want to make sure you do it right. So by having the seed make contact with the soil and then the soil becomes wet, that's what creates germination. So Dragos, I had a question about fertilizer. Do you fertilize? Do you use a starter fertilizer for the seed?
You definitely should, especially, I mean, the number one rule, you have to be at least 5 to 6 weeks away from your last fertilizer application. The main piece of that is you don't want to put too much nitrogen on an area in a given period. Right? So a starter fertilizer would be the best option to go about. And the main thing about it, the nitrogen number is fairly low in most of them. But what you're looking for is that phosphorus, which is a root nutrient. It will help those new grass plants get established.
And the bag says new lawn. So, you know, when you're looking, it'll indicate new lawn fertilizer. And then what about, I always put a little straw or something on top to hold the seed, because the birds want to fly in and steal that seed, but it also maintains moisture. So do you use a mulch?
Yeah, definitely. There's like a few options when it comes to the mulching piece of it. You can just use straw. You know, there's quite a few options.
That's great.
It's chopped up straw, and typically with these, the ones that are meant for seeding, they won't have any other seeds in them. So now you're not, you know, a catch-22. You're trying to get rid of something and fix an area, but now you're adding unwanted seeds into that area. Another product that I use quite frequently, it's called a pen mulch. It's a seed accelerator. Some companies call it Seed Success, but basically it's a paper product. It's a mulch with a starter fertilizer combined in it.
Excellent.
And this will help cover up the seed. It will help greatly with moisture retention. And the other nice part about it, it slowly breaks down on its own, so there's no need of raking it. You know, sometimes with straw, it takes a little bit of time.
Well, when you think about it, when the seed is just laying there, it dries out in a heartbeat. You know, it dries really quick. So we want that seed to stay moist so that it germinates. What if I just want to do a small, like a patch, an area that is not just, it's not doing good, but I just want to do a quick patch job?
There's a lot of good options for that when it comes to reseeding small areas. like anything else, I would scratch up whatever's there you want to remove it. And then something like this, that's an all-in-one. It's got a mulch, a starter fertilizer in it. It's got the grass seed. These will do great in both sun and shade.
Oh, great.
So
Perfect.
you can just top dress that area, and obviously, like anything, keep it watered in order to germinate.
I like the container too, because it could go in the garage and it seals well. So if there's anything left over, then you could use it again in another section.
That's a great point with grass seed too. Most people ask if they can reuse grass seed from season to season. As long as it doesn't get wet and doesn't freeze, bone solid, you can reuse it from season to season. It will lose a little bit of germination every season, but that doesn't mean it's going to completely stop from germinating, as long as you kind of store it in proper conditions.
Yeah. What about a broader area that I've prepped, I've done all the work, but I'm ready to spread a lot of seed?
Like overseeding the lawn is always a good practice for the fall. Every time you overseed, you want to use a spreader. Even if you're going to reseed a small area, you want to use a spreader. It can be a little hand spreader. Most of the seed manufacturers will put spreader settings on them, so you know what to set it on.
So that would be on the back of the bag?
Correct. Okay, a lot of them will have that right on the back of the bag, and they'll give you some popular spreaders and what the setting would be on it.
Good to know.
Obviously, you can use a fertilizer spreader, especially if it's a larger area. This will do quick work of a small area, but for 4,000 or 5,000 square feet, I would definitely use a push spreader.
Okay.
The other big thing about it, you have to make sure that you overseed at the proper rate. Sometimes think with grass seed, more is better. I'm going to get all the seed to come up. It's going to crowd itself out. Density is kind of the enemy of a healthy lawn. Grass, as it develops, it will tiller out. It will fill in an area really nicely. It just it's a little bit of a process, and it's going to take a few weeks until the area looks the way it should.
That's important to know too. Okay, and then the last thing we need to know is watering, right? Our watering practices. So I thought maybe we'd go to the watering department and look at all the product there that we can use for our new grass seed.
Great.
So we're in the watering department at Agway in South Dennis, and there's a lot to pick from. What do you recommend for new seed?
The size of the area that you're reseeding plays a big role into it.
Yeah.
An oscillating sprinkler will help you water a very large area. The downside to them in a little bit is, it has to be fairly square or rectangle, something like that. If you have an area that's like narrow and long, there's other options. You can use an impulse sprayer, or there's a few options for that.
Okay.
But my go-to is typically the oscillating one. The other thing about reseeding or overseeding is the timing of the watering and how often you do it for how long.
Right.
Typically, right after I reseed, I put a sprinkler out there for like half an hour to 45 minutes. You want to give it a deep soaking, like get those seeds into the ground as much as possible and maintain that seed to soil contact quite a bit. For that also, I usually use a timer. They come in a variety of brands and names. There's like the electronic ones that will do more than one area at a time. You can get a conventional standard sprinkler timer that you just kind of manually set it and forget it, and then when it's over, it will stop.
So the first thing I do is I check my time. So when I use my timer, I know the second time I use it how long it's going to take. And sometimes I water my grass seed twice a day, like first thing in the morning, and then maybe it's dry, so I do it again in the evening, just a quick wet to moisten the soil.
And I think that's a great rule of thumb. And the other thing that plays into it is like how, the weather conditions. It's going to be a nice warm day, like we mentioned earlier, 75, 80 degrees. You might have to be out there at least twice, maybe 3 times in a day, just to kind of give that seed a chance to get to germinate and get established. And that's probably for the first 10 to 14 days. Most of the seed meshes that people use, you'll get perennial ryegrass germinating in like 5 to 7 days. Then some of the fescues, you're looking 14 to 16 days, and then Kentucky bluegrass can take up to 4 weeks. And the idea is the first seed that germinates and starts getting established will provide cover and shelter for the other seeds to be able to come up.
Right, important point. And then I cordon mine off. My new seed, as I see it coming up, which is always exciting, I make sure nobody walks on it, that the dogs don't go digging around, people don't walk on it. So I always make that space open and safe for the seed to continue to grow and become healthy, and that nothing disturbs it.
And that's a great point, Priscilla, is you have to try as much as possible. We all know it's Cape Cod. A lot of times it's, still have visitors and stuff like that. But as much as possible, keep kids and dogs off the area. it will give you the best chance. Now you've done all the hard work.
a
Now
lot
it's
of
just a waiting game.
Yeah. Well, I think that does it. I think we've got a really good overview of how to, get your grass going in the fall so that next year you have a great lawn to play croquet on. So come in at Agway and look at all the products that are here available for great fall seed planting in your yard. Happy gardening.
Happy gardening.